Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Dear students, welcome to Insight Academy. In today's session, we're going to have a discussion of your GS Mains test paper of ancient and medieval Indian history. I hope all of you have attempted this paper. Many of the copies I have checked and have found your answers are very good. In some answers, content is less. You have to put the relevant data along with the arguments or the statements that you incorporate in your answers. So I'll highlight those issues during the discussion session here. And syllabus of the test paper is the same that was given to you in your test schedule. So let's have a discussion of this test paper. Keep your answer copies with you so that you can match the points that you have covered, and you should note down the extra points that you're going to learn during this discussion session. So if we start with the intro here, this is a test paper of main exam. In main exam, you have marks and word limits associated. So whatever is the word limit given by UPSC, if it is 150 words or 250 words or any other word limit, you have to follow that. Try to write everything, try to meet every demand of the question, try to cover every dimension in your answer within that word limit, because UPSC is looking for your decision-making skills, your personality. Can you follow instructions? Can you meet your requirements within the limited resources? So those things are going to be the center of attention here. So marks and word limits, you have to follow word limits carefully. As far as the dimensions are concerned, whether question has 2 parts or 3 parts, or answer has 5 dimensions or 7 dimensions, at times 15 dimensions, irrespective of word limit, you have to include all the possible dimensions in your answer, because the examiner has model answers or the main points of the model answer with him or her. And the examiner is going to match how many dimensions have you covered in your answer. If suppose he has 10 dimensions in his model answer, you have covered only 7, so he will give you 70% of the marks. If you have covered only 4, then you'll be getting only 40% of the marks. So cover as many dimensions as possible. Do not bring any point back to your home. Put that in your answer sheet. While writing answers, you have to pay attention to introduction. Introduction has to be a crispy part, couple of sentences, 25 to 30 words, generally 10 to 15% of the total word length of your answer has to be in intro. So write intro, couple of sentences connecting your answer with the question. You have to include your conclusion also in your answer, and conclusion has to be something that is drawn from the answer, and conclusion can also be in the form of way forward. What can be done hereafter? How things can be improved? What is your suggestion? Because many questions will demand your views, will demand your suggestion. Depending on that, always include charts, maps, flow charts, diagrams, tables, to make the answer interesting. Try to write your answer in bullet form, because if you write in bullet form, it will be easy for examiner to find out every point from your answer, because in paragraph format, the examiner may miss some of the important points that you have covered. If examiner misses, he or she loses nothing, but you lose your marks, and that is your future. So ensure that you make the life of examiner easy as possible. Underline, use dark color pen, make a good presentation, have a good handwriting, and cover all these dimensions. Use as many flow charts, diagrams, maps as possible. Try to put relevant things. Do not just put a map or chart just for the sake of putting it. If it is relevant, put it. If it's not, leave it. So keep all these things in your mind, because if you follow these things, you can score say 65 to 70% marks also. UPSC is very liberal in marking. Only problem with students is that they do not pay sufficient attention to what question is expecting from you, what UPSC is expecting from your side. You have to pay serious attention to that. Let us see question number 1 here. Discuss the key features of the craft and technology of Harappan civilization. When you start writing answer, read the question carefully, underline the keywords. The keywords here are crafts and technology of Harappan civilization. That is part number 1 of your question. Why do archaeologists regard this civilization as a part of Bronze Age? Second part is about the chronology, about the time period. Why do we call Harappan civilization as a Bronze Age civilization? Let us start with part number 1 first. When you look at the Harappan civilization, you'll come across Harappan crafts. These are the Harappan ornaments, beads, sculptures, potteries. You have toys. These are some of the potteries discovered during excavations at Harappan civilization. So look at the keywords here, craft and technology, and then issue of Bronze Age. So what were the features of crafts and technology? Think. Harappan craft and technology were highly evolved. Were they representing initial phase of advancement, or were they representing evolved form? So they were highly evolved. The Harappan craft technology was representing a refined level, or they were highly refined. They were multi-dimensional because multiple different crafts were practiced by Harappans. You can write pottery, you can put toys, metallurgy. Metallurgical knowledge was advanced because some of the toys, some of the crafts were metal crafts. Harappans knew how to make bronze by mixing tin and copper in a definite proportion. Then you find here division of labor. It appears that Harappan crafts were practiced by experts, and this expertise was possible only if there was division of labor in society, or there was division of labor. Some were potters, some were seal makers, some were brick makers, some were making ivory goods. Then Harappan crafts were export oriented because many of these craft goods were exported by Harappans to Egyptian civilization, to Mesopotamian civilization. Then you have to see that Harappan crafts were based on a fine aesthetic sense. They were using paintings, they were using decorations on their pottery, so they were concerned about aesthetics. So these crafts represent a fine aesthetic sense. Technology-wise, you can see crafts related to civil engineering. Harappans constructed dams, forts, granaries, great bath. They knew the technique of making walls and surface waterproof by using gypsum and bitumen. So all these features you can put here so that you meet the requirements of the first part. The first part is, say, 80% of your answer, because when you read question, you have to figure out, is it 50-50, or is it 80-20, or is it 20-80, or 30-70? So here, issue is 1, and there are issues are 2, and that 2 big issues, crafts and technology. Technology might be related to craft, technology might also be related to non-craft aspects of life. Second part, why is Harappan civilization known as the Bronze Age civilization? Harappan civilization is known as the Bronze Age civilization. Archaeologists put it as a Bronze Age civilization because use of bronze was a typical feature of this age. Bronze Age was, say, from 2800 BC to around 1000 BC, because around 1000 BC the man started using iron. So somewhere the iron evidence, oldest evidence is of 1000 BC, somewhere we have 1100 BC, and somewhere we even have 1250 BC. So roughly around that age was the Bronze Age. This was a period in which Harappan civilization flourished. So you can write about if some settlements, put a map and give references. They knew how to make bronze by mixing tin and copper in a definite proportion. Copper was found locally. They were procuring copper from K3 mines. And tin was procured from Afghanistan and Iran. So this was Bronze Age because of the use of bronze. Alloy is not a metal, so you have to use the terms carefully. And it was import dependent because they were importing tin from outside. Time period, knowledge of iron was not there. Bronze was the strongest alloy known to human being in that age. That's why this was a Bronze Age civilization. So put headings and subheadings when you have 2 or 3 parts in your answer. Craft technology, so introduction, put a small, then you put craft technology, crafts and technology of Harappans, then you put why Harappan civilization called Bronze Age civilization. So that way you can put 2 or 3 subheadings depending on the demands of question. Ensure that you are meeting 150 words. So here you have to write, say, 30 to 40 words. Intro, 25-30 words. And then you have roughly around 100 or 80-90 words for the main part. So depending on that, you have to select your points. You have to select your words. Do not cross the word limit. Cover all the possible dimensions. That is the key to getting marks in general studies. Question number 2, examine the nature of socio-political organization during Rigvedic period. So again, identify the key points here, socio-political organization. And age, Rigvedic age or the early Vedic age. How far is it correct to say that Rigvedic period was tribal and patriarchal? So how can we say that socio-political system was tribal and patriarchal in character? First, always about the source. Information provided by Rigvedic Samhita. Samhita means the book of hymns. Every Veda is divided into 4 parts. Samhita, the book of hymns, the Brahmanas containing explanation of Samhita. Then you have Aranyaka, some of the explanations composed in forest, and then you have Upanishad containing the philosophical discussions. So information provided by Rigvedic Samhita helps in understanding the nature and character of socio-political organization of Rigvedic period. Start with that is intro. So this was tribal because Aryans were living in small tribes. Every tribe was having its own organization. So tribal answer will keep on putting here itself. This was patriarchal because father represented the members of family in outside world. Father was the head. Family was the smallest unit and family was patriarchal. Family was known as Kula. Number of Kulas together made a village or grama. Number of gramas made together vis. And Jana was the highest political organization. So this is highest socio-political organization because society and polity were quite closely intermixed in that age. Then you find here these people were having well-developed stratification. Social stratification was present. A Varna system was followed. So Varna system means there were 4 Varnas. According to Purushukta hymn, these 4 Varnas or the members of these 4 Varnas originated from different parts of the body of God Brahm. So you can write Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Only one reference of all these 4 Varnas is found in Purushukta hymn, that is in 10th Mandala of Rigveda. You have to cut down explanation. Otherwise, your answer will always be overshooting and maybe more than 50-60% of your length. More features if you see, we find here well-developed institutions. The well-developed social institutions, you have marriage, you have slavery, you have education. Well-developed political institutions, you have Gramini as the village headman, you have Vispati as the head of the Vis, and you have Janesha or Gopa as the head of Jana. Bureaucracy was in early stage of evolution, so bureaucracy was not very well developed. There were only 3 officers, Gramini, Senapati, and the Purohita. 3 officers are mentioned in Rigvedic Samhita. So all these points you can put here. Was it patriarchal and tribal? So that part you have to focus. information indicates that it was tribal because they were living in small tribal groups, and every tribe was having its own organization, its own social organization, and its own political organization. So if you want, you can put these 2 points at the last. You can write about other features. And if you want, you can meet the demands of the last part in the beginning itself. So how it was tribal and how it was patriarchal. So write all these features. You can also do one more thing here, that, okay, social organization separate, political organization separate. As many headings, as many parts you make, that will make your presentation better, that will improve the analysis. So it's up to you how many parts you can write, but it will be good, better in fact here if you have social organization and political organization of Rigvedic age separately, and that will improve the marks. Try to make some map where Rigvedic Aryans were living. Try to name few sites which have been mentioned in Rigvedic Samhita, which we have confirmed through archaeological excavations. That will make the life easy. For example, the site of Sanoli, that is under excavation at present, was found a few years back in western parts of UP. Question number 3 here. Examine how growth of crafts and commerce contributed to the urban prosperity during post-Mauryan age. So post-Mauryan age means the 5 centuries from around 200 BC to 300 AD. Though you know Mauryans were up to 187, but for the sake of chronological description, this is the period used in books and in all other sources. But this is not precisely correct, because post-Mauryan would be 187 BC onwards. This was the period of remarkable economic prosperity in the Indian subcontinent. So it was the age of prosperity, and this prosperity was the result of highly developed Indian external trade. Indians were trading with the Roman world, with West Asia, with Southeast Asia, with China, and they were getting huge inflow of foreign wealth because of the positive balance of Indian trade. So examine how crafts. Now, by keeping these things in mind, let us start meeting the demands of question one by one. Define what is urban. The process of urbanization in India, or the second urbanization in India, started in 6th century BC or BCE, before Common Era, when cities like Rajgraha, Vaishali, Champa and Avanti, etc., or Ujjain, etc., emerged. This process of urbanization kept on gaining momentum, and it was at a very high level of advancement during post-Mauryan period. How? Craft. Industrial base was very well developed. A significant portion of population was involved in manufacturing activities. So what were the manufacturers? Here pottery you have, northern black polished ware, black and red ware, you have red ware, or Orentine ware. Red ware was brought by Kushanas and Sakas, and Orentine ware was brought by the Romans. So in industrial base you have pottery, you have textiles. Indian textiles were in great demand in the world. Mathura was famous for its Shataka. Shataka was a fine muslin produced at Mathura. Then you have ivory goods. Throughout history, ivory goods were exported by Indians. Silk. Silk was more of an intermediary trade, and silk was purchased or imported from China. It was exported to Roman world. Rome was a great consumer of silk products. Then you have toys. All these things were manufactured in India. Then trade, commerce. The trade and commercial activities were at their peak here, or almost at their peak, because of the availability of products, because of the role played by guilds, because of monetization of economy, because of the support given by Mahayana Buddhism that emerged in this age, because of the discovery of monsoon winds, because of the friendly relations maintained by Chinese Han dynasty Chinese Han rulers favored close relations with India, so Indians could import huge amount of Chinese silk, and that silk could be exported by Indians to other parts of the world, particularly the Roman Empire. This trade was balanced in India's favor, so balance of trade was in favor of India, or there was positive balance of trade. Because of this huge amount of foreign wealth moved into India, the Roman writer Pliny, one important source of this time, Pliny the Elder was the author of natural history. So Pliny the Elder in his book Natural History expressed sorrow on the Roman addiction of Indian luxury goods. He said that because of addiction of Romans, huge amount of Roman gold was moving from Rome to India, and India was becoming a sink of gold. India was accumulating huge amount of gold because of this flourishing foreign trade and because of this positive balance of foreign trade. So all these dimensions you have to link. Money was coming, demand of Indian products was there, so Indian cities were getting more and more prosperous. Craft specialization was happening, knowledge was expanding, and this carried the level of urban prosperity to something that was never seen before. This is the pillar of Besnagar. This was also a craft. You can see stone cutting industry was very well developed in this age. You might have heard about Heliodorus Besnagar pillar. So this is Heliodorus Besnagar pillar. Heliodorus was ambassador in the court of Shunga king Kashiputra Bhagbhadri. He was a Greek ambassador. Besnagar Vidisa or Bhilsa in MP is the place. Question number 4. Discuss the key administrative reforms introduced by Sher Shah Suri. How did his policy contribute to the growth of trade and commerce in India? Sher Shah Suri was one of the finest administrators. He came to power in 1540 by defeating Humayun. He defeated Humayun twice, Battle of Chausa and Battle of Kannauj. Battle of Kannauj is also known as Battle of Bilgram. In fact, Battle of Bilgram is also known as Battle of Kannauj because Bilgram was the actual place, actual village where battle was fought. Kannauj was a nearby city. So he displaced or he removed Mughal Emperor Humayun and became the founder of Sur dynasty or Sur Empire. Though he ruled only for a short period of around 5 years, but in this short period itself he introduced many reforms which had a lasting impact on Indian economic, political and cultural history. What were these administrative reforms? Number 1. He introduced system of local responsibility. So practice of local responsibility was introduced by him. Local officers were held responsible for any kind of crime that took place in the area. If they failed to catch criminal, then they were punished. Second thing, the judicial legal system was harsh and cruel. Punishments were tough, so he introduced tough punishment so that punishment could deter the people from indulging in criminal activities. Idea was not to reform the criminal, idea was to terrify others into following the rule of law. Idea was to make an example of the criminal by punishing him harshly. Equal size of provinces. He divided his empire into sarkars and parganas of equal size so that administrative responsibilities could be handled properly. His political system or his administration was secular. He did not discriminate among the people on the basis of religion. He followed policy of centralization of administration. He created new designations or new positions in bureaucracy so that administration could be managed. His administration was based on justice and fairness. He did not differentiate or discriminate among the people on the basis of their religion or anything else. He delivered even-handed justice. The administration of Sher Shah Suri was guided by imperialism. His intention was to strengthen the foundations of Sur Empire, and for that purpose he introduced many reforms. Sher Shah's administrative reforms touched different aspects of human life. So Sesha touched the area of currency reforms, military reforms were introduced, Dag and Chira practices were introduced. Then he built roads. Then he built sarais or rest houses for the convenience of travelers. So he paid attention to each and every aspect of life so that administration could be a facilitator in the overall advancement of economy, in the overall well-being and progress of the people. His administration was welfare oriented. He introduced many welfare reforms or welfare initiatives. So that we have to understand Shah's administration, what kind of steps did he take? All these put with examples. All these reforms helped in movement of goods and services. So movement of goods and services became easier. Sher Shah introduced new currency. Silver rupiah was introduced by him, from where the name rupee comes today. Roads, currency, uniform taxation system, all these things helped in the movement of goods and services. And because that, Indian economy got a boost. Trade with different parts of India as well as with the outside world increased enormously due to these steps taken by Sher Shah Suri. So write all these initiatives one by one in brief without putting too much of explanation. This was the great Sher Shah Suri. He met Babur once, and Babur could see that this Afghan has a line of royalty on his forehead. Babur wanted Humayun to be careful about Sher Shah, but Humayun did not really pay attention to the advice of his father and ended up losing the empire of Hindustan to Sher Shah Suri. Question number 6. Define the term Neolith. Discuss the material culture of Neolithic communities. In what ways did the Neolithic phase mark a departure from its preceding Paleolithic and Mesolithic periods? So basically the question is asking about comparative analysis of Neolithic with previous periods, that is Mesolithic and Paleolithic. What is Neo? Neo means new. So Neolithic is a combination of Neo, that means new, Lith means stone. So Neolith represents the new stone, or Neolithic period represents the new Stone Age or the last phase of Stone Age in Indian subcontinent. We are talking about Indian subcontinent, the terminology is uniform all over the world. So Neoliths represent the new kind of stone tools used by mankind during the last phase of Stone Age. Since these were quite different from the previous periods, that's why the term is Neolithic Age. What was the material culture? So look at the material culture of this period here. Igneous rocks. Use of igneous rocks for making the tool was a typical feature of this age. Basalt and dike, etc. were used to make tools. That's why the tools of Neolithic period were stronger than previous period. So you are comparing with the previous period simultaneously. The Neolithic people started producing food grains, so they were the first to cultivate food grains, so they started practicing agriculture. Beginning of agriculture is considered to be one of the key features of Neolithic period. Whenever agriculture started at one place or at some place, we say Neolithic age arrived. They were the first producers of their own food. That was a revolutionary development. Pottery was used. Initially, pots were handmade. Then wheel was invented, and wheel was invented to turn the pots. The knowledge of wheel paved the way for the manufacturing of carts. So Neolithic people used carts. Then you have settlements. They stopped roaming from place to place. So nomadic phase of life came to an end. They lived in settled villages, or for the first time villages emerged in Indian subcontinent. Mehergarh in Balochistan was a flourishing village in around 5000 BC that is considered to be the finest example of a village settlement of Neolithic period. Mehergarh in Balochistan in the valley of river Bolan. If you look at other aspects here, we find the tools were in the form of celt. Celt means a tool with handle. So if you put a handle in a tool, think of a typical hammer, and you put handle in it, so what happens? The tool becomes more efficient and effective. The use of handle indicates that, or these celts used by Neolithic people indicate that they were aware of principle of torque. You know that torque is equal to Fd, so this makes the tool more efficient and effective. So Neolithic phase was fundamentally different from Paleolithic and Mesolithic times, because in Paleolithic times, economy was hunting and food gathering. In Mesolithic times, the economy was based on hunting, food gathering, and domestication of animals. For the first time, agriculture started. In Meso and Paleolithic periods, sandstone was used, or quartz was used to make the tools. Quartz was a variety of sandstone. Pottery was absent, wheel was absent, life was nomadic in those periods. So this is how Neolithic age was fundamentally different. And because of these remarkable changes, Australian archaeologist V. Gordon Childe coined the term Neolithic Revolution to signify these fundamental changes or this multidimensional shift in different aspects of human life during Neolithic age. So write all these things in your answer and present properly. These are the houses found at Mehergarh. So you can see they were living in houses. In earlier periods, Paleo or Meso, the people were living in huts or in rock shelters. For the first time, houses made of sun-dried bricks were used. These are the houses discovered at Mehergarh. So size of house was not that big, but they were using houses. This indicates a significant shift in the habitation pattern. This is aerial view of the same. So you can see the rooms here. Rooms are relatively small, but they were having permanent structure. They were no longer living in huts or in caves. In the context of social harmony and interfaith dialogue, examine the key contribution of Bhakti and Sufi movements to Indian socio-cultural life. So what were the key contributions of Bhakti Sufi saints? Look at the feature or the nature of Bhakti and Sufi movements. Bhakti and Sufi movements represented a new variety of thought in India during medieval age or during 14th through 16th centuries. Write some names. Ramanand, Kabir, Guru Nanak, Ravidas and others were the prominent personalities associated with Bhakti movement. Moinuddin Chishti, Nizamuddin Auliya and Baba Farid etc. were some of the prominent Sufi saints. So start with the introduction and then come to the point here. These movements were liberal. These movements were progressive. Liberal means they promoted freedom of the people. They were against any kind of restrictions on the behavior of people. They were liberal, they were progressive. They were assimilatory in outlook, because they were happy to adopt good elements from others. These movements were non-violent. These movements were secular in their outlook, because they did not really focus much on religion. They focused much on the lifestyle. They were ethical in character. These movements were using vernacular language. Local languages were used by Bhakti saints like Avdi, Brijbhasha, Sami or Marathi. The Sufis used Urdu language. These movements were guided by the doctrine of humanism because their focus was on human welfare, human progress. These movements were largely apolitical because they were not closely associated with any political movement. They did not really support or oppose any particular ruler. And because of their largely apolitical character, because of their simplicity, they attracted the vast majority of Indian masses. They attracted masses towards themselves. And because of that, what happens? Hindus and Muslims flocked to the centers of Bhakti and Sufi saints, so social harmony improved. They were liberal, they followed the liberal values of Islam and Hinduism, so the religious divisions, the acrimony that was prevailing in society in that age got reduced. Since they attracted both Hindus and Muslims, so Islamic culture and Indian culture started assimilating, and because of that, a composite Indo-Islamic culture came into existence that was having elements of both. The Bhakti Sufi saints contributed to cultural enrichment of India because their outlook was inclusive, they were not exclusive. Their outlook was inclusive, so they contributed to cultural enrichment of India. So write all these things and then he can conclude that their contribution to Indian society and culture in medieval times was extremely important. They helped India in becoming better culturally. They contributed to literature also because many of them were fine scholars, and they also contributed to music. Think of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he invented Kirtan style of vocal music. Sankardev, Guru Sankardev of Assam, he invented Satriya dance. Satriya is one of the 8 classical dances at present in India. The Sufi saints, particularly Chishti saints, used music as a part of their rituals and ceremonies. So Chishti genre or the Sufi genre of music emerged out of the activities of Chishti saints. All these dimensions you can write here in your answer. The 6th century BC is considered a turning point in Indian religious and philosophical thought. Discuss the causes and significance of the emergence of various religious sects in India during this period. So in this question we are talking about the 6th century BC, where Buddhism, Jainism, the Ajivakas and Charvakas, etc. came into existence. So what was there? First sentence is a statement. That's not the question. This is just representing a kind of development, or this is a statement of prevailing reality. Discuss the causes and significance of emergence of various. What were the causes? Question is asking causes, and question is asking significance. So sometimes the questions are very lengthy. You have to really figure out what question is demanding, because if you start writing randomly, then you will not be getting marks. You have to write as per the demand of question. So what were the causes of the emergence of these religious and philosophical movements or philosophical groups? 6th century BC was the age of an intellectual revolution. A large number of different personalities rose to the occasion to produce new thoughts. 62 heterodox sects. Heterodox means non-conforming or different from the mainstream thought. 62 heterodox sects came into existence in this age. Buddhism and Jainism were the most prominent among them. This is your introduction. What led to the emergence of these sects or these viewpoints? Evils prevailing in Brahminical system. By this time, the liberal and progressive Vedic religion had been replaced by a costly, complex, and violent Brahminical religion. So Brahminical religion was costly, complex, and violent, and because that a vast majority of Indian population was seething with discontent, was not happy with it. So once it wasn't happy with it, it wanted change. So what was the issue? Let us see a bit more in detail. You can avoid such details, but you have to know them. For example, Brahmanas were saying that complex rituals must be followed to reach heaven. They were saying killing of animals was must during rituals and ceremonies. The peasants of the age wanted to use the animals in agricultural activities, but Brahmana priests were saying kill the animals in rituals. So there was a dichotomy, there was a clash between economic needs and the needs of religion. Then they were saying that money lending was not a good habit or was not a good practice. Business classes required money lending. Then the hymns were given magical powers and they were to be chanted in a particular manner. So role of priest was indispensable. The Brahminical religion was saying priest must be invited, priest must be called, his service must be used to perform rituals and ceremonies, so you have to pay to him. So system was beyond the reach. System was beyond the reach of the people financially. System was beyond the comprehension of people mentally. And because of that, the Brahminical religion was not in a position to satisfy religious urges. So religious urges of people were not being satisfied. Religious quest was remaining unfulfilled. And that's why different personalities like Buddha and Mahavira emerged on the scene to satisfy the needs of the people. What is the significance? If you look at the significance here, what we find here, we find emergence of new ideas, 62 different ideas emerged. We find new philosophy like Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 10 Teachings, 3 Jewels in Buddhism. You find Panchavrit in Jainism, and those Panchavrit were having 2 variants, Panchanuvrit and Panchamahavrit. Similarly, Charvakas put forward a materialistic worldview of the life. Ajivakas put forward a very simplistic worldview of life. So different kind of philosophies emerged. Cultural enrichment of India took place. New ideas, new habits, new thoughts, cultural enrichment. Philosophical dimensions got expanded. In Brahminical religion system or Brahminical religion, the salvation was termed as moksha, but here the salvation was termed as nirvana. So nirvana and Mahaparinirvana, these were the terms used in Buddhism. In Jainism, they were only nirvana. So new philosophical doctrines came into existence. Soft power of India increased. Because when these ideas moved beyond Indian boundaries, Indian soft power increased. So soft power increased means Indian influence in global arena expanded. Buddhism became a world religion with the passage of time. It moved into Tibet, China, Japan, Korea, as well as in Central Asia, this side. These heterodox sects or these viewpoints represented the need of the people. They contributed to the advancement of agriculture, advancement of industries, and advancement of trade. So they also contributed to overall advancement of Indian economy in that age. So all these dimensions of significance you have to write in your answer. Cover every dimension so that you do not miss out anything. Question number 8. In the context of discussions on nation building and integration, examine the key features of Akbar's policy towards Rajput kingdoms. To what extent was it successful in consolidating Mughal Empire? So basically, you have to look at Akbar's Rajput policy. And what was the outcome? What was the impact of this Rajput policy? Examine the key features. So question is asking about key features, and in the context of nation building, it means the liberal, secular, assimilatory, unifying, inclusive aspects of policy you have to pay attention to or you have to focus upon. So Akbar's Akbar's Rajput policy was liberal because he tries to give as much liberty to Rajputs as possible. It was egalitarian in outlook. Rajput nobles were treated equal to the Mughal nobles or Irani Turani nobles. It was secular. He did not allow religious ideas or religious elements to dominate his relations with Rajputs. It was inclusive. He tried to win over Rajputs onto his side in every possible way. It was based on system of checks and balances. So he tried to maintain a balance among various Rajput powers. Elements of carrot and stick, it means Rajput nobles were given promises of rewards. Those who accepted Mughal overlordship voluntarily, they were rewarded with high positions or high mansab ranks. They were given autonomy in their areas to govern without Mughal intervention. This Rajput policy was broad based. So he tried to accommodate as many people as possible without really interfering, without really feeling them suppressed. So these are the kind of features of Akbar's Rajput policy. And then you can come over to the success. Because of this liberal and progressive Rajput policy, because of this inclusive, Akbar could win over most Rajput rulers. Except Maharana Pratap, he had to fight with Maharana Pratap. Maharana Pratap did not accept the overlordship of Mughals in the reign of Akbar. So, except the Rajput estate of Mewar, others accepted Mughal sovereignty. So, he could win over most Rajputs. Territorial expansion took place. Mughal Empire became a pan-India empire. Cultural assimilation took place. Because Rajput culture was incorporated in Mughal court, in Mughal painting, Mughal literature, Mughal architecture, Rajput elements were freely incorporated. Practices like Jharoka, Darshan, Tuladan, etc. were adopted from Rajputs. So cultural assimilation, progress in architecture, progress in painting, progress in music, all these things happened. Peace and stability. This also contributed to peace and stability in India because of the close association of Rajputs with Mughals. Secular outlook of Mughal Empire was also strengthened by the success of Akbar's Rajput policy because these Rajputs who were present in Mughal court, they counterbalanced the influence of Irani and Turani nobles. Irani and Turani nobles Iranis were from Persia and Turanis were from Central Asia. They were relatively orthodox in character, but their influence could be balanced by the Rajput nobles in Mughal court. So, write all these dimensions one by one. Question number 9. How did the rise of Marathas under Shivaji reflect regional assertion and establishment of a decentralized indigenous power structure in opposition to Mughal centralization? So, rise of Marathas as a great power took place in around the middle of 17th century or during the later half of 17th century. Marathas, led by Maharaja Shivaji or Shivaji, challenged Mughal dominance in Deccan, and they put forward a new worldview of political, social, and cultural life. Right about the Mughal administration. Mughal administration was centralized, was top-heavy. Mughal administration was bureaucratic. Mughal administration was highly complex. Under Aurangzeb, because when Marathas were emerging, Aurangzeb was coming to power. You remember the date, 1658. Shivaji started his journey in 1646 when he conquered Javli. So, the orthodox religious policy of Aurangzeb gave impetus to the rise of Marathas because Marathas were against or opposed to the religious orthodoxy. Shivaji wrote a letter to Aurangzeb in which he demanded that he must follow the liberal policy of the type of Akbar in which every segment of population could be included, could be integrated. But that did not happen. The Mughal Empire was a military state. Mughal Empire was relying on the superiority of military power, so it was centralized and top-heavy. Marathas represented local aspirations, and once they represented local aspirations, so they were in favor of devolution of power, they were against the dominance of a big power from the center, and because of that, the Marathas rose in revolt against Aurangzeb. In 1674, Maharaja Shivaji established the independent Maratha kingdom with the name Swarajya. So he established independent Maratha kingdom with the name Swarajya. And that idea of Swarajya continued to inspire the generations of Marathas in future. That Swarajya was carried further by Sambhaji and other Maratha rulers. The Marathas were not as powerful as were the Mughals. Marathas relied on guerrilla method of warfare. The Maratha administration, the Maratha revenue system was based on local demands. Institution of First Pradhan was adopted by Marathas from Deccani Muslim kingdoms. It was not there in Mughals. The revenue system, land revenue system was having elements of the revenue system developed by Malik Ambar of Ahmednagar, because it was more in tune with the local needs, where revenue could be collected twice a year in cash or kind. Because production was less in Maratha land, it was a resource deficient area. So all these features you have to write here, and you have to link and show how it was representing a regional assertion of local aspirations against the Mughal central power. Question number 10. In the light of present-day debates on social pluralism and cultural integration, examine major changes that took place in Indian society during medieval period. So what was the key feature here? Arrival of Islam. Islamic culture came to India along with Turks. So Indian society during this age was characterized by the assimilation of Islamic elements and the Indian elements or Hindu elements, or it was Indo-Islamic in character. Then you find here new festivals like Eid, new language, that is Persian, was brought to India by Turks. Persian plus Hindi gave birth to Urdu language. So new languages emerged during medieval times. Urdu was a result of Hindi and Persian language assimilation. Then talk about the progress in the field of music. Hindustani music is the result of assimilation of Persian music and traditional Indian Carnatic music. Changes also found in dress pattern and food habits, as the Turks brought new dress pattern, new food habits. Then you find here Sufism emerged. Sufism represented a liberal form of Islam. Bhakti movement was also a major social phenomena here. Though you can say they were religious, but actually they were meeting certain social requirements. The society of early medieval age was also full of evils. Many evils got intensified because of the threat posed by the arrival of Turks. Child marriage, widow remarriage prohibition, sati, all these things became widespread. Johar emerged as a result of the threat posed by the arrival of Turks. Johar means mass immolation. So there was a positive side, and as well as there was a negative side of the impact of the arrival of Islam or establishment of Turkish rule. All these dimensions you have to write here in your answer to meet the demands of question. So these were the questions of today's test. If you face any difficulty anywhere, feel free to contact me through teacher support, or you can come and see me here in office. I'm always here to help you. So dear students, keep working hard and keep getting better and better. All the best. God bless you.